In this video, we're going to take a look at the Strike Force Alpha O-Ring figures. This was a Kickstarter I backed, I think, a year or two ago, and I just received my pledge. I thought it'd be neat to kind of look over the figures and some of the new innovations they're doing with O-Ring. As you can see, I got some paperwork. They also had sort of like a file card with a story on it, which is kind of neat. I think they've built up like a whole world for these different characters and, kind of like good guys and bad guys and these kind of like alien creatures. There's some stands that came with that. I don't remember if I ordered those. Honestly, Kickstarters, sometimes, it's like you don't get them for a year and then you get the stuff and you almost forgot what you ordered. I think this poster came because I picked one of the characters that's in that poster. A really cool kind of ninja guy. That's kind of neat. And then this was something I opted to get, which was a bunch of heads. So at the time, didn't really know what the characters were or how they would look, but it seemed kind of neat that this sort of system, the O-Ring system that these guys have come up with, is very modular. They kind of want you to play around with the different figures and kind of mix and match things. So I thought it'd be neat to get this assortment of heads. So here we're looking at the Night Wraith. I thought this was one of the coolest characters. You can see the packaging is really nice. You get a lot of extra gear with each guy, and then they've got kind of a file card with, description. What's really neat about their packaging is that you can, fold those tabs up, and then you can slide the whole card back out, and it's really nice. It's much higher quality than sort of like the G.I. Joe kind of more cardboard ones. These almost feel like, I guess, like a fine kind of like collectible card, like a really nice baseball card kind of thing, and it's really thick and nice. And then you can just slide everything out and you've got the character in this, tray. You can see, you've got the hands that are on the character. There I just like knocked everything out of the tray. But it comes with 4 optional fists. This guy came with 2 like samurai ninja swords, like a laser gun and a backpack, an alternate head, and then this sort of soft goods cape, which is really nice, like really good quality. So you can see it's got a hood and the cape. And then I was shocked that it actually has like a snap sewn into it or, glued into it somehow, or maybe just like pressed into it. But, it fit really nicely. I love taking it off though, honestly, because then you can see all the detail. This guy's got a really nice kind of, almost like a near future kind of ballistic armor, but kind of with that sort of ninja or, some kind of martial artist kind of vibe. Sort of like a Snake Eyes kind of feel, but I also like the designs of the masks. It's kind of got like a skull kind of appearance. You can see the articulation's really nice. Definitely, on par with G.I. Joe. But what's nice is you can rotate the feet. So there you can see I could turn that. So, if you're kind of having your character in a pose where they're kicking or something, you can rotate that. And then the hands also rotate, which is nice for, holding a rifle or different weapons. So I'm going to grab the stuff out of this tray. And the backpack is kind of like the classic G.I. Joes. You just push it back into the peg there. And you can see there's a screw in the back. So these do come apart like the O-rings. I'll show that later in the video. But take one apart and there is an O-ring in there. I figure it's like the same one. And then what's neat about this backpack is it holds the swords. The only thing I didn't like about this was the swords were a little loose, so they would fall out. So it's kind of like, like Storm Shadow's kind of backpack where he could hold 2 swords. I would just I'll probably like stuff something in there, like some paper or, just something to give it a little more friction so those won't like slide out. And then he's got this kind of like futuristic sort of blaster. And this is more on the sci-fi end. Some of the other characters you'll see, they have more realistic sort of, like a carbine kind of, you'd expect from sort of like a near future or, like present day kind of weaponry. But here you can see what's neat is there I'm accidentally rotating the whole arm, but you can rotate just the forearm. So you can actually have him kind of like put his palm up and grab the stock of that weapon. So really nice for posing. And just, it seems like a simple thing, but it's just like, one of those like innovations that just really lets you get like better and better posing. And then you can see the pegs kind of where the knee are. So you can kind of see that like that passes through and that's what holds the lower leg in. So there isn't a screw in the lower leg that lets you take the lower leg apart in halves like a G.I. Joe figure. And then here I'm posing him on the stand just so you could see how it holds a pose nicely, and it just looks good. This is a really great figure. This is my favorite from the group, and I'm really glad I got this. I think it was Kickstarter exclusive or one of the unlocks, but really psyched about that. Now, I think this guy is a Hellguard, or he might be Dr. Diablo. I think it's Dr. Diablo because I got the head, and you can see his face. Yeah, see his head in there. But it's really great. Like, look at all the equipment you get with that guy. And it's really nicely displayed. I think when the Kickstarter updates, they were talking about, how are we going to do the kind of bubble on the card. And, if it was just taking up half the card. But, just settling on taking up a good portion of just the bottom half of the card, I think was the right way to go. Because it really just, like, shows off all the stuff you get. So, again, I think you're getting, like, 6 hands, a head, get sort of like a ceremonial, this kind of cool looking sword. He gets kind of a pistol that looks like one of those old, like, I don't know, like a Mauser or something like that, and then a backpack with sort of this communications kind of backpack. I'm not sure what the deal is with that, if he's just so he can talk to his troops and command his army. This guy seems like he's kind of like a leader type, and then just looks really good. So I'm just playing around with all the different articulation, kind of getting a better feel for understanding it. But you can see how that the rotation on those extra joints just really like gives you a lot of flexibility. Also, look at his paint. I really like the gold and the red. Just really nice paint, paint work, and just overall like design. They definitely gave this guy sort of like, it almost feels like Imperial, like almost like World War II, World War I kind of level, but then with the futuristic elements, and it just gives it, kind of this nice feel of, he's a member of this army. I believe that the paint was done by Matt LaCroix, and he's a pretty awesome customizer. I believe there were a couple other guys who worked on this, but I'm sure he worked on the paint and helped with developing the nice lines, like that pinstripe kind of going down his leg and on the arm. And just the way you can pose these guys is really nice. They're for a smaller 3 3/4 inch figure, you can really get dynamic poses and really show off how good these guys are. But I just love this guy too, along with the Wraith. I mean, these are my two favorite. They just look really awesome, and I figure I can use these alone or throw them in with some of my G.I. Joe figures, like, and they'll fit right in with like Cobra or mercenaries, or even be in their own faction that you could just throw in with Cobra and G.I. Joe. Now, here's another figure I got, Bullet Man. Now, this reminded me of this character I had when I was a kid. I don't remember if it was like my uncle's or I got it from my dad or something like that, but it was like one of the big G.I. Joes, and it was this bullet guy, and you could like take his helmet off, put it on, and I don't know, I used to just fly him around like he was Superman, but I just always thought he looked neat, like he could like smash through anything. So I thought this was kind of one of the more like fun, fantastical figures. So I get him, and he has some cool attachments, almost like a G.I. Joe Cobra bat. Like you can put blades on for his hands, and you can replace them and update them. Then there was this guy, this kind of like lizard guy. He looked really neat. I thought he was just like interesting, especially because he had 4 arms. I wanted to kind of see how they worked that out. And he also kind of reminded me of the mutant kind of bugs from Micronauts. And I think he was supposed to have like weapons that sort of looked like some of the Baron Karza stuff from Micronauts, but I'm not sure why he didn't include that. But he has these like buzz saws that you kind of swap his arms out with that are kind of neat. But I wish there was some kind of like weapon he had that was like, sort of projectile laser or something like that. I believe he's like one of the invaders, like kind of taking over the world. And I think this, kind of sets up the story in a really cool way, and also gives a lot of flexibility for this character. And this guy was neat because he looked like he was the same kind of race, so one of these alien invaders. But this guy has 2 faces, so you can kind of, in a fun kind of play feature, spin his head around. I also thought it was neat that he had like this sort of clear dome. And we usually see that a lot on like the smaller figures, so I thought it was really neat with the sculpting too, kind of that snake kind of serpent look. I thought it'd be cool to use with Cobra too. These could be some kind of like crazy, almost like Cobra Law kind of guys. But I know, that way you can use them with G.I. Joe or with their own storyline, and just kind of use the factions any way you want. I figured everybody would be interested in sort of a side-by-side. I know I was just to see them up against, you know, G.I. Joe's, the original A Real American Hero kind of figures. And you can see they scale perfectly to them. I take you know, these guys off the base so you can see them, but they're the same height. They have the same kind of proportions. Really, really awesome job of kind of matching that style. And so I think these guys just blend in perfectly. And I think that's what a lot of people would want, you know, from a new O-ring kind of series, you know, that they work together with the other O-rings, you know, namely, you know, G.I. Joe. And so there you can see I'm putting, you know, the G.I. Joe figure onto that stand. And what's neat is like the foot pegs are totally compatible. So I didn't put these guys on any vehicles, but because they fit on the stands, I imagine they're like totally compatible. And then I'm just like throwing these guys up next to some other kind of O-ring figures. So, you know, the Dungeons and Dragons guy, you know, obviously a little bit bigger, but, you know, they kind of have that kind of construction in common. And I figured I'd put them next to a modern Acid Rain figure. So these come in around 4 inches, you know, bigger than the 3 3/4. But they're still pretty cool. And I think, you know, there's a lot more detail in the Acid Rain figures. Acid Rain figures are a lot more expensive. But these guys just hold up really nicely. They almost bridge the gap between the two and can live in both worlds. So here I thought I'd take them apart, see what's inside, what makes them tick. If you've ever changed an O-ring, you know, this will feel really familiar to you. Just kind of, you know, take them out. And there you can see the O-ring. It looks like a pretty standard O-ring. Maybe it's thicker, maybe a different kind. I'm not really sure. The way the two parts slide together is a little different. There's like some, you know, kind of thinner things in the bottom that line up with something on the other side. So when you slide the two halves together, you really get a really good alignment, which is really nice. And here I just decided, you know, I'd try swapping out the head for one of the other heads. This guy looked neat with, you know, sort of the eye patch, that pirate, you know, special forces kind of look, and with the red beret, look kind of neat. So this is just like awesome. I mean, you could do this with, you know, any of the O-ring figures, but it's just awesome that they're offering this, you know, and many of the figures come with alternate heads. So, you know, right out of the box, you have, you know, just this kind of little customized kit. And then the more figures you get, the more you can mix and match and, you know, just have fun with that. And, you know, I know a lot of people have done that with G.I. Joe, so this will feel, you know, just the same, but with a lot more flexibility and options. I really like the articulation on the necks and heads. You can see there, you can really turn them and, you know, to look in any direction. It's pretty awesome. So let's pop that head off and we'll try another one. I was kind of looking, you know, just seeing what might work well with this. I think the original head's just like perfect, so you're not going to beat that, but it's kind of neat just trying some different ones here. So I think this is like this red kind of, you know, almost looked like the red version of it, which would be kind of cool. Like, you know, you could get a bunch of these and like definitely army build them. Those could be maybe your like special forces kind of guys. That actually is me thinking that would be really cool actually. And then here's the green helmet. I think this helmet is from another faction, if I'm right. I didn't get any of those guys, but you know, that looks kind of neat. I think I tried putting that on the alien guy, which kind of looked neat too. You just have to paint his neck. That was the only thing, I think, because it has that kind of flesh tone neck, so it didn't work with the alien that well. But you know, you could just throw some green paint on there, and it would work great. And yeah, so you screw in the screw, and your figure is back and ready to go into battle. Looks awesome. So that's probably it for this video. I hope you enjoyed my little walkthrough of Strike Force Alpha. I'm really digging these figures. I hope you thought this was pretty exciting. All the mixing and matching and, you know, removing hands and all the options and pieces they give you. It's pretty awesome, pretty cool. I'm really glad I backed this Kickstarter. And I'm glad these guys really worked hard to try to get this to us before this Christmas. Really cool, really great team, and I hope these guys keep making more and more product. Here you can see kind of the pieces from the Kickstarter, what they were proposing, and they really came through with it. I know you can pick these up on Big Bad Toy Store if you missed the Kickstarter, so that's great. Also, just search for Strike Force Alpha, and you can find all kinds of information about this. That'll wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed this and got something out of it. Hope you found some cool information on Strike Force Alpha, and I hope to see you in the next video. Yo, Joe.